Hey, how's it going today? It's Frankie and with Terror Tuesdays, and this movie is called Till Death. And I gotta say, this was a brilliant movie. It's a lot similar to Gerald's Game, but the difference is at least this character Emma could walk around, and there's enemies involved as well in this one. I'll just run down what it's about. So it's about this character called Emma, who I just mentioned, and she wakes up chained to, well, handcuffed to her dead husband. That's now, I was expecting the movie to completely start like that. It took like what, 20-ish minutes to actually get going for her to be in that sort of situation. The rest of it was just introduction. So she gets handcuffed to her husband, and she tries to look for a way to try and get out of it. And at least she can walk around and she could be a bit more mobile and know what's going on. Not like Gerald's Game, where that character was more just bedbound, you could say, and she just couldn't move because she was just handcuffed with both hands, not just one. But she's handcuffed on one hand, so that's obviously because it's just one handcuff. They use a pair of handcuffs, and yes, and then she eventually comes across like Tom, who the movie made it look like that was her husband, but I kind of knew Mark was her husband because on the IMDb site it showed those two together. And so I immediately thought they had to be husband and wife because they showed those two first on the far left. But then I thought, because Tom, she had an affair with Tom. That's what I was thinking, because they were alone in the room together, so I'm not sure. And then he eventually just says, oh, you can't, tell the police everything because they might think she did it or something like that. And then he eventually, comes across, two guys called Jimmy and I think Bobby. And Jimmy goes and talks to him first about burst pipe and something like that, and Tom gets a sort of suspicious, being like, why you come all the way in the middle of nowhere just to do that? And then he gets stabbed multiple times by Bobby, and these are two killers that have obviously played this sick game of like wanting to handcuff Mark and Emma for like some sick revenge plot or something like that. So this is where the movie gets more tense now. This is where it's a bit of a cat and mouse type game. The storylines is brilliant in this one, and the tension and the adrenaline rush I was having, it was tense. I was just like, oh, don't move there, or don't go there. These movies are brilliant. I just love the concept of them. Just having to just make sure you don't get, killed, anything, keep cool. She eventually does, get in a fight with him. That comes in later on in the movie. I'll mention that later on. And she eventually does get her, she does eventually get out of those cuffs. She eventually does get away from her dead husband by using a weapon that she should have been using for the two guys, because it looked sharp enough. It was sharp enough to cut through that chain. It was sharp enough to cut through those dudes. So I don't know why she didn't continue using that weapon. But there was an interest where she was trying to put petrol in the car. Bobby was in there as well. He punched the tire. Excuse me. She had to really make sure she was in good hiding spots. And then she had to, go into the cellar door, and that's when she thought she was going to get caught from both sides. But then the car just started up. The car started, the alarm of the car started going off, and that's what triggered Bobby to go and check it out. She also had to hide as well, just before the interaction came in. And yeah, she went to there's so much going, there's so much hiding spots for it. There was just so much tension and build up, and that's when she starts going to a fight, right? She starts going to attic, and then whilst Bobby checks out, whilst Jimmy checks out like the dark room. Basically, if you don't know what the dark room is, if you haven't done photography, it's when you put like the pictures in there, like to sort of appear, like you put in the ink, so like it's sort of like to make the image appear. Basically, it's hard to explain what it fully is, but I used to do those back in media in college. It had all the pictures of like her with a with black hair or something like that, and they also saw like Bobby's eye getting all bandaged up because he stabbed her and she stabbed him with a key in a defense. But that's not why Bobby and Jimmy are there. They're there for the money in the safe, which was weird because I thought they'd been there for vengeance, at least because Bobby sort of once he said that she took it away from him, and he also said that that Mark he was the guy that hired him. him or Jimmy said that, but then he said that was the same guy that put him away. So I'm a bit confused by that piece of dialogue right there. Maybe I misunderstood it, or misunderstood what they meant. And yeah, this is where the Bobby goes into the attic, like after whilst Jimmy explores the dark room, and he sees what he thinks is like someone like rocking the chair, but then that was just Emma just sorting that out, just so that preparing for attack. And then she whacks him. He falls through, hits the ground. Oh, I thought he was dead right there. And then she also attacks Jimmy as well. Jimmy gets locked in. She breaks the handle, the door handle, and she goes in. And then he sort of reappears. That was a bit of a quick wake up right there. After getting whacked. And then this is the part where Jimmy sort of gets a bit more. Jimmy's more like the less of the two evils. He sort of doesn't want anybody else to die, but then he sort of doesn't mind killing Bobby just simply because he doesn't want Emma to die as well in that sense. So, and he sort of get over the next safe, but the safe combination is on Emma at the back of it. I don't know why it was engraved or something. It's weird. Why was it on her like that? I don't understand. And then he puts like Bobby's not Bobby. He puts like Mark's like fingerprint into the safe. And yeah, and it opens, and he was expecting to see money. He saw like a note saying, "Oh, there's no diamonds here. It's on her personal, whether it is, or it's on her heart, or whatever." And it was a necklace that she was given as like a gift from Mark. And then the only way to do it is to get off her. Did Mark plan this? Is that why he committed suicide? Because he planned it? I think he was told to do all this, but then I don't think he was meant to commit suicide. I think he was just supposed to help Jimmy and Bobby out because he was probably getting threatened or whatever it was. So yeah, that's what he did. It was all set up that way, and that's when the fight happens, and Jimmy sort of tries to get Bobby off her, and he sort of like really like pushes him against the wall. I think there was a nail there or something sharp, and it just pierced through him, and he sort of dies like that. And this is where there's a fight going on, and she handcuffed Bobby to Mark's dead body, which is a bit quality skill from her right there. That was quality scene, to be honest. And goes downstairs, and yeah, a bit of a fight here, just to drive off. Yeah, then she crashes. This is the part where it was a bit silly in the movie. A true ending of a movie like this, she would have just drove away properly. I know it was icy and snowy, it would have made sense, but then she kept skidding, and it just hit like one of the sheds, and she crashed, and then she didn't exactly die. She got out the car. You don't say get out the car, but she wasn't there when Bobby checked it out. And then this is where you see this is how you get to the physicality between characters. She's not as physical as he is, because he's able to move around quicker with the body. And then this is the part with the ice, and it's one of the best scenes in the movie, by the way. This ice scene here builds up more tension, and she's a bit of a fight here. And she does stab her in the leg, earlier on, which was she's limping. And yeah, he's sort of like, this is where with one part she kind of stabs him, and then the ice breaks, and then so they go into water, and the physical water. She stabs him in the eye. I think it was the other eye. So that's quite typical, isn't it? he gets that karma for doing this to her, but he's getting the same treatment as she did back to him when he last attacked her, which is quality. I think it's the other eye, because I'm sure it's this eye that you see bandaged up. But then she attacked this eye. Oh, that must have hurt though. All the blood coming out. He definitely died after that. He's always going to escape that. She escapes, and yeah, I kind of forgot what the other part of the end. I kind of got the ending a little bit there. It could have ended a bit more better, to be honest. With her having a better life, you could say. There's also another scene. I don't know if I was going to mention or not. It was important, but Mark also had tapes for her, and there was one tape where it was showed at the hospital where she got attacked, and he was just talking about a case of, or was it the police station? Might be the police station. And another part in the car where Mark said something like, so tape was playing in the car and was saying, "Oh, I'm sorry I did this to you. You were nothing before you met me, blah blah." Just that piece of dialogue. There's someone playing music outside in their car, so it's kids. I don't know if you can hear that. It's pretty loud enough. Yeah. Don't know what the song is. Doesn't matter. I'm gonna continue the video anyway. I'm talking loud enough. So yeah, I'm sorry if I got scrambled up my words and see. There's just that there was a lot to talk about mentioned in the movie, but I mentioned the basics. I summarized the best I can. And I gotta say, that movie was brilliant. Like I said, like Gerald's Game, but more going on. This character actually can move around, and I think it would make sense for her to move around. There's two people after her. I think it does make a lot of sense. Whereas with Gerald's Game, it was about just an adrenaline thing where she was on the bed and she had to figure out how to get out. There was no enemies in the slightest, so it kind of does make sense. But this movie, I gotta say, there was a more better concept, a more exciting, tense concept to this, and it worked. I mean, I thought this movie was going to be good when I read about it. Only 9 people played it as well, only 9 actors in it. I mean, that's one of the most shortest casts ever, if you're asking me, and a lot was going on, so they made the most of it. So yeah, rating. I'm sorry that I just can't find the fault. I'll give this a 10. I absolutely loved this movie from start to finish. It intrigued me. They should have added mystery because we never knew the real reason, but as the movie went on, I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. They're there for the money, they're there to kill him. So there wasn't much of a mystery, but the first half of it, I was just like, is there a mystery to this? Is there a reason why Mark had that picture, or like her case file from the start? I mean, at least that's what I think it was. That was at the start of the movie. So yeah, and the acting especially caught me. It actually intrigued me a bit more. The acting was good. The tension, the build up, the storyline, the plot, everything in this movie was just brilliant. One of the best adrenaline rush movies I've ever seen. It's up there with Gerald's Game. Similar concept, but a lot more going on, I've got to say. I gave Gerald's Game a 10. This movie is just brilliant. What can I say? This is faultless. Please watch this movie before watching this video. I know I should have said at the start, but it's a must watch. It 100%. I need to hashtag IMDb a lot more as well because I love the website. I just love going through it. It's more easier to understand and read. They've got too much writing, too much text. It's just brilliant throughout. But yeah, one thing I gotta say is she could have had moments there where she could have actually got those handcuffs. She could have found oil. She could have used something a bit more. I don't know if water would have helped because I know it's slippery, but I don't know if that would have helped in that case. She did want to survive. She was always going to survive in the movie like that anyway. I mean, she's the main character. She's going to survive. However, a lot of movies aren't like that. But yeah, but she could have used more weapons to attack them as well. But there's only 2 of them, so she felt a bit outnumbered. Which is understandable. I think if she had a bit more help, it would have been a bit more different. But yeah, there's no improvements. Like I said, I like the acting. Love the storyline, love the dialogue, love the plot. I mean, the ending as well, you could say is good. The tension. I thought this is probably one of the best adrenaline movies ever. I know I said it. I'm going to keep saying it. It's one of the best. If you haven't seen the movie, I'm going to watch more movies like this, but with a bit more of a twist. That would have been more ideal. But yeah, that's it for this video. 10 out of 10 it is. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, comment, share if you know, subscribe, hit the notification below. So see you in the next video.